The scriptures today call us to a responsibility, a specific type of responsibility. It takes us beyond our personal world and takes us beyond our immediate family and community. It calls us to a responsibility that sees things globally, even if Jesus' people didn't know that at the time. It calls us beyond cultural morality. It calls us beyond our personal ideals. It calls us to God's love and God's justice. When God was speaking to Ezekiel in the first reading, he told him that if the Lord speaks and he doesn't say anything, he's responsible for whatever somebody does that he didn't challenge. And if he does speak, he does challenge that person, and that person acts anyway, his responsibility, Ezekiel's responsibility, is mitigated, even though the other person is still held responsible for their actions. The interesting thing is that when God is talking to Ezekiel, he's speaking to the whole house of Israel, not individual people. Something to keep in mind as we go forward. In the gospel, Jesus tells us that if someone sins against us, that we're supposed to go to them and talk to them about that. In today's world, we're learning very quickly, I think, that yelling at people or being militaristic in our actions and in our ways, and as a person that's originally from New York, I'm learning this the hard way because we're a little bit more demonstrative in our speech, but to tone it down a little bit and to, as the sisters say, speak to someone in love. Speak your truth in love. But Jesus extends this, I think, beyond just helping his disciples to foster good personal and healthy personal relationships with their immediate family, friends, and so forth, and supported by the church, when he says, if the person that you're talking to refuses to listen to you, bring some witnesses. And if they don't listen to the witnesses, then bring it to the church. And if they don't listen to the church, then treat them as though they're Gentiles or tax collectors. The thing is, we have to look at this in its context of the entire gospel. How did Jesus treat the Gentiles and the tax collectors? He built conversations with them. He entered into conversation and built friendships with them. He didn't see them as other than himself. And he talked to them about the love of God. I'm sure that they wouldn't have listened to him if he was militaristic, and I'm sure that they wouldn't have listened to him if he was condescending. He had to toe that line. So when he says to treat people as though they're tax collectors or foreigners, he's telling us to do what he did, and that's open those lines of communication to foster the friendship. In this season of creation, I am reflecting on our greater responsibility, both my own personally and ours as a community and ours as a world. You know, who is the foreigner? Is it just somebody that came from a different place? Is it just somebody that lives in a different country? Is it somebody that we have to know? How do I open up those lines of communication? How do I foster the friendship? How do I speak my truth in love? And most of all, how do I listen to the foreigners or the tax collectors or somebody who lives across the world? How do I listen to them in love? And the first and only way to do that is to listen to God in love, to open my heart. I think the most interesting thing about Laudato Si', the care of creation that was put out by Pope Francis, is that it extends our understanding of who the tax collector or the foreigner is, not only to people, human beings, but also to global existence, people and plants and animals that live on this very limited space. In Jesus' time, the world was very expansive. In our time, we realize that the earth is pretty large, but compared to all of creation, the earth is not very big at all. We have limited space and limited resources. And in listening to God in love, I have also heard Pope Francis's exclamation and explanation that all of creation has a right to exist. All of creation deserves my respect, and for me to take responsibility for my own actions and also call others to responsibility, but call them to responsibility in truth and love and God's kind of justice. I've realized that we need to heal the world, and we can't heal the world if we're not connected to it, if it's something other, something different, something not of our own caring for or responsibility. The earth is our responsibility. In the second reading, Paul says to us, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no evil to the neighbor. Love does no evil to the neighbor. Hence, love is the fulfillment of the law." And that's our call.